Welcome to Treble the Trouble with your hosts, crochet designers Faye, Helen, and Vicky.
Welcome to Treble the Trouble, episode 4, and this month it's Treble the Trouble with Itchy Crochet. Now, Itchy Crochet has got nothing to do with the horrible itchy 70s yarns that used to make us itch. Itchy Crochet is actually Amanda, another crochet designer. So I'd like to welcome Amanda to our show. Hello, Amanda. How are you?
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You excited to be here?
I am.
Yeah, you might regret it by the end of it. But...
No more than us. This
Yeah.
episode is going to be a little bit different because it's more of the format of the Yarn Shop Day interviews that we did in November of 2020 with myself, Helen, and Vicky. So it's going to be a bit like that today, but I am certain we will probably go off into the woodlands down some strange little path and digress and get ourselves a little bit lost.
We never do stuff like that.
So say you, I'm the one that has to edit it, and I can assure you we go down some really interesting paths and not all of it makes it in, so
Probably
yeah.
just as well. Right, so Amanda, we have a list of questions here, right? Whether we get through them all is another matter. Whether we digress on them is more than likely, but we'll just see where it takes us.
So first off, Amanda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, you know, there's nothing little about me apart from my height. I'm big, I'm loud, I'm very, very confident, which is sort of a main thing that people notice about me. I think I'm awesome. I genuinely, and I say that to people and they laugh, but I do. And I will give you my self-confidence whenever you want it.
Yeah, but we think you're awesome as well, so
Definitely.
Disagreed with. But it's the thing. It's like, how can you do this? You know, how can you have sort of orange and yellow hair and do this and do that? It's because I don't care what other people think. It's nice when people agree with you, but not everyone is going to like you, and that's okay. They're allowed not to.
What led you into knitting and crocheting?
My mum, mostly. When I was tiny, so under 10, my mum taught me to knit. And I knit scarves. I did knit a Doctor Who scarf when I was about 15, obviously.
Everybody had those then, yes.
Yeah. And I did the odd jumper and a couple of pairs of gloves here and there. And then when I was in my 20s, she taught me how to crochet. I say taught, it was very loosely, this is what you do, handed me the hook and the yarn, and I just did it. It was the most natural thing I have ever done. And I made a granny triangle shawl out of the most awful, scratchy blue and green yarn. So I did stripes of blue and green because they always go well together, and wore it to death. It fell apart eventually. And that was all I could do, though. All I could do was granny triangles. It took me another 15 years to work out that I'd never actually crocheted a square. Started making a granny square blanket and thought, well, what do I do with the corner? And I couldn't work out why I couldn't keep going, why I couldn't go up to the next row. And it took about half an hour to work out because I'd never actually done a square.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But then when my oldest was born, the clone, my mother-in-law gave me an insert that came in one of her knitting magazines with a couple of amigurumi patterns. So little soft toy patterns. And that was it. I was obsessed. It came in quite handy because when going to soft play areas or anything, all the interesting activities you do with kids, I got abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't have a child. I would be sat in the cafe in a soft play area while my child was harassing somebody else's parents across the room. amigurumi. It was Mr. Wonderful, Super Crochet Wonderful, and something like that. And it was very long, very traditional, little blobby bodies with long, spindly arms and legs. And the first pattern I ever altered was that pattern and made what is now the Itchy Crochet frog. That was my first sort of foray into pattern design, sort of, where I did webbed feet and froggy eyeballs for this basic body shape in the book.
I think, though, that most designers start off by altering somebody else's pattern.
That's how you learn.
Yeah.
I have started off using somebody else's pattern to make a bear. And because of the amount of seams in it and the amount of sewing, particularly sewing the snout on, I've completely rewritten it just so it starts at the snout, so I don't have to sew one on.
Yeah, I have pretty much all of my patterns. You make bits and pieces first and work them in as you go along.
Yeah,
because I hate sewing them on.
I'm not a fan of sewing anything and ends. No. It ends in.
With Rudolph, the only end you have to sew in is the one in the middle of the top of his head.
Perfect.
All the others are worked in. There's not a lot you can do about the very last one where you cut the yarn, though.
Yeah.
That's the same for a lot of your patterns. So do you do the same then, Amanda? You make all your little elements and then you pick them up as you go along?
Yeah, just sort of, well, it's less elements. Now, this bear, so I didn't have to sew the arms and legs on. I used safety joints.
Oh,
is this the one you did all the CE testing for?
Yes. This has been Destructo tested. I have the actual, because you have to test 2 of each toy. You have to do a washed one and an unwashed one. And I have the actual Destructo tested bears still. And I have Destructo tested Inchoates and all the soft toys that I've made. And the yarn I used, when you set fire to them, you have to set fire to your soft toys. Some people have a problem with it. It's really difficult emotionally. I laughed gleefully. They wouldn't set fire. They wouldn't catch. So there's a slightly melted toe on 2 bears in boxes.
Wow. See, I couldn't do that. I love my work too much and I don't like making the same thing more than once.
Yeah, I have 5 limit as a general rule. I can make 5 of something sort of in one sitting, and then I won't be able to make another one for a couple of months. I'll be bored. I learned that with cupcakes. For my first craft fairs, I made crochet cupcakes. I have enough stock. I had to keep changing them. Started off with icing on, drizzly icing, and then I did whipped cream and a cherry, and then there was proper frosting, and I had to keep changing because I could only do 5.
It does get a bit boring after a while doing the same thing, even when you're like designing something and you have to make it 2 or 3 times to make sure the pattern's worked out because you've altered bits on the second one, so then you have to make another one and things. I really, that's one of the reasons I don't make stuff to make to sell.
One of the big reasons, yeah.
Yeah, I really can't be bothered with doing all the testing for toys and things like that.
The testing's actually quite fun. The hard bit is chemical migration. You can't do that at home. You have to have certificates to say that the dyes used in the yarn are non-toxic. But sort of hanging weights off the safety eyes and setting fire to their feet and dropping tins of dog food on them, it's quite fun.
It certainly sounds interesting.
No, I'm not sure I could. I really couldn't set fire to Rudolph, you know. There's absolutely no way.
You know, he probably set fire anyway.
He's cotton, actually, so I don't know.
Have I done a cotton? I've not.
Oh, there's a challenge.
Yeah.
I do know stuff burns differently depending on what fibres it is. Because
the stuffing, everything I make is really firmly stuffed. You could hammer nails in with an Inchoate. And I think because it's so firmly stuffed, there's not as much air inside.
right.
That's my theory. I've not done much thought into it, but the Inchoates that I tested, you can't even see a singe mark on.
Wow.
That's really good.
So what does crochet and knitting mean to you?
It's something to occupy the naughty side of my brain.
So basically it keeps you out of trouble.
It really does keep me out of trouble. You know, when you see a button that says do not push, and 90% of the population want to push it but will move on. I have actually pushed the emergency stop on an escalator.
Just to see what would happen?
I have always wanted to pull the chain on a train.
You know, I've not done that one, but you know, if I was on a train on my own.
Yeah.
You're just putting ideas in our heads now, Helen.
I'm watching TV.
I don't know whether I am capable of doing it anymore with the knees, but something I have always wanted to do is run up a down escalator.
I did that.
Done it.
I did it. And there was a bus conductor at the top because it was at the bus station. And there was a bus conductor up at the top, but I just saw uniform, had close to a heart attack, ran down the escalators and round the corner, possibly with this bus conductor wetting themselves laughing at me. I thought it was a policeman. I was 12 or 13. I thought I was going to get arrested for running up the escalators.
Right. So this is why you crochet then?
Yes, I would just get into trouble. And I don't concentrate very well without occupying that side of my brain.
Yeah.
So if I'm watching TV, if I've not got any crochet going on, my brain wanders off and sort of starts playing videos of dancing monkeys and singing to itself. And then I miss half an hour of a TV show or the film I'm watching or something. So it helps me focus on what I'm doing. If I've got that little bit of something that's just have to pay enough attention to occupy half of my brain, but not complicated.
Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. It does mean that you don't know what actors actually look like, though.
What everybody sounds like, though. And I
Yes.
will sit and go, I know that voice.
Yeah.
I don't think you miss the film so much. You do have to stop and look up at the quiet parts.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I think you know pretty much everything that's going on.
I did watch an episode of a TV show that was entirely subtitled. There were no words. It was the episode in question was entirely in sign language.
Ah.
One of the main characters was deaf and they were at school. So the whole school, everybody was just signing. And
Right.
didn't miss a beat whilst crocheting. That's my greatest
I'm
life.
afraid if I start watching something that's got subtitles, it's got to go.
See, I have to use subtitles because I'm going deaf.
Advantages of living on your own, you turn the sound up.
Yeah, that's true. That's just showing our age now, isn't it?
So my ears are fine. I can't see.
You're not alone there either. Not
I
alone
have
there.
my comedy bifocals for crocheting and watching TV. They make me look like Timmy Mallet. I thought they were smaller when I ordered them off the internet. And I have a spotlight that is so bright, if you look at it, you won't see anything for a week.
Yeah. sometimes
Very
you've got to do these things. I can't work on black now. If I'm doing something black, I've got to wait until I've got a decent day and sit in the window.
Yeah.
And if I don't, sometimes not even that works. But in saying that, this house has an amazing huge window in the front room, and in the morning the sun comes in through it. So that's really good. But I have been known to just abandon everything and go and sit in the garden and crochet something because I was working on black and there was no way I could do it in the house.
Oh, I'm jealous of your window.
Black is the bane of my life. I'm not a fan of black.
Geek Girl's a ginormous goth. So everything's going to be black eventually. We're doing quite well. We can get a bit of grey and purple in there at the moment.
Yeah. Well, my raging goth actually does love all shades of purple.
No, purple is just the best colour.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I like pink as well, but that's only to wind up Helen.
Well, purple is actually my birthstone.
Oh, the one.
But I have to say, I prefer the Welsh word for it than the English one. Poffor.
Pardon?
Poffor.
Poffor. For purple. Yeah. Poffor.
Yeah.
Oh, I
like that.
And my other one that I really love is butterfly. Pilly Palla.
Pilly Palla.
I just think that sounds so much better than butterfly. But we digress again.
Of course.
Right.
Where are we up to?
How would you describe your design style?
Eclectic.
I have to say that's politer than the way mine was described. But...
I have quite a wandery brain. So I'll be sat working on an Inchoate hoodie and studying them, my brain will say, do you know what'll be dead good? A cardigan with spots and stripes and uneven sides. And then sort of that'll get just dumped over there. There's a hat pattern that has been sat in a box for 2 years that I'll finish eventually.
I don't know anybody else who does something like that.
No, of course not.
So it's really, I was watching, I can't remember what I was watching. I was watching TV and there were no fish. This is very important that there were no fish on the TV. And suddenly I got so excited about the idea of a set of Inchoate hoodies based on fish. I shouted it. And the kids are looking at me like, okay, backing away slowly, leaving the room. Nothing on the TV that would remotely suggest fish, soft toys, hoodies, but it was just there. So that's the next one.
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. It sounds like fun.
It's going to be like the fish mouth is the edge of the hoodie. So he's going to be peering out of a fish's mouth.
Oh, I like.
Right.
So you've got the eyes on the top and then a fin on the back, is it?
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah.
And that just, that's how things are. So we've got all the Inchoates, we've got blips, and I've got amigurumi coming out of my rear, and there's a blanket and a couple of cardigans and hats and scarves. But at the same time as being all scattered and eclectic and all over the place, I run with a theme. So I fell in love with bobble stitch. So made 2 different types of hats, 2 different scarves and wrist warmers. And then there's whole, I have to make a set. I have to make a whole collection based around this one little theme, which works well for Inchoate. There's always 3 hoodies with whatever the theme is.
That's not that erratic, but yes, eclectic.
So you get a theme, but then sort of that collection won't be anything like that collection, which will be nothing like the other collection. And I just do whatever hits my brain at 100 miles an hour, as it tends to do.
So we know you've got an eclectic design style. What's your workspace like?
Minimalist. That's my workspace. And the coffee table. So I sit in my living room and work. I don't have a designated designing area. The computer's over sort of behind the camera, and I will sit there and do typing up and everything. But mostly I'm sat on the couch, the telly on, watching Netflix, feet up, as comfy as possible.
Best way
So
to be.
the minimalist is the opposite of what's actually going on inside your head at the time.
Yeah.
So it's that calming balance.
Yes. Bit yin yang.
Yeah. Something fell over?
Yeah, it was the small child's mobile phone.
How many whips do you have?
But that's actually quite a loaded question. Are we counting things that I was making to sell and never finished?
If you started it and you do intend to finish it at some point, right?
Yes.
Then it's classed as a whip, right?
In which case, the follow-up question is, how many UFOs do you have?
Because those are the ones that you don't intend to finish.
Right. I don't have any UFOs.
Right.
I never do. Even if it pains me to finish them and I hate them as I'm finishing them, I have to finish.
So do you ever frog anything?
I do, but then I will rework it. I won't frog and then reuse that yarn for something else.
Right. It's just that, do you remember Vicky said that if she gets something that she doesn't like, she'll frog the yarn and reuse it. I tend to put it in my ottoman, right? The ottoman is for stuff that it's gone a little bit stale, so you come back to it later. How much later is another question.
Yes. I did have a blanket for 4 years.
You didn't actually answer the question.
So I have 3 active. I am alternating throughout the day because I'm on furlough from my day job. I am alternating between 3 projects at the moment. There is the hat pattern that has been up in a box for 2 years, and 3 riot bears that I ran out of that particular colourways to finish their sort of their last arm or leg, or there's just sort of like a bit of a limb ready to finish, that I do now. If I need a gift, I will find a way of finishing those with what I have, so it doesn't take me a week to finish them. So I have, and there's 3 of them, 3 active, and I have 7 whips at the moment.
Is that all?
Yeah.
You're really good.
I am absolutely terrible for starting something if I've already got something going on. I can't do it. I have to finish. I have a real problem with unfinished business.
I'm still surprised that you're in single figures for your whips.
The more sort of craft blogs I see, the more craft pages I join on Facebook, the more unusual I realise I am. Because there's the other question that you have ready to go is, what does your stash look like? Minuscule. The yarn for the projects I'm currently working on, and a box about this big, about half full.
I must say, you are not a normal crocheter.
No, I'm not. I have terrible trouble feeding stash. I can't do it. I think it's something to do with this weird guilt complex I have. Crochet Widower has to actively encourage me to buy yarn.
I can help him.
She does help quite a lot.
Well, I look and I go, oh, I like that. Oh, I could do this with it. But until my brain says, yes, do this with it, I struggle with buying something that's purely for me, for purely personal gratification purposes.
So you don't have a yarn bowl then?
No. I want one.
Or a yarn petting bowl, I mean, not a yarn bowl.
Yeah,
yarn bowl.
I really want a big round fish tank with mini skeins in, all rainbow colours. I have always wanted one of them. I've wanted one of them since I could crochet.
Yeah,
I've narrowed it down now. I've realised what sort of yarn buyer I am. I am down to the big round fish tank. At one point, I wanted a giant terrarium, but
they do actually look really good in a goldfish bowl.
yeah, possibly long colourways, hand painted, variegated, self striping going on, and I just the idea of buying something that I don't have an immediate use for, I just can't do it. Everybody else that lives in this house is a hoarder. There are computer carcasses everywhere because Crochet Widower likes building computers. He's made jewellery out of old computer components for about a week and then got bored. And everybody else has all this stuff everywhere and, oh, I love that, and they buy it. And then it gets put away for 3 months, and then, oh, I forgot I had this, and it's brilliant. Then it gets put away for 3 months. I can't do that. I take up about 1/8 of the space of everybody else.
I have to say, I'm quite shocked at this.
Me too. I mean, to be fair, my stash is a lot smaller than it used to be because I've got smaller space that I'm living in. However, the only reason my stash got as big as it did is because every time we'd visit my grandparents, my granddad would go, here, take this bag of yarn. And by bag of yarn, it was a black sack that he'd found in the loft. Please take this. Your grandmother is never going to use it. And I ended up coming home with all of that. And that's how my yarn stash grew. Because like you, I would only buy what I needed for the project.
Mine got so big that I ended up opening the shop.
Yep.
Yes.
And she is our dealer. Yeah. So we can sort out the yarn stash thing if you need a bit of help, you know. She'll just gently grind you down until you say yes.
Well, so now we've got the Northern Lights going on. That's because I've got.
Yes, I'm talking about Northern Light. I do rather like your cardigan.
It's a thing of beauty. I may not be self-publishing this one.
Right.
I have sent it off as a pattern submission.
Oh, lovely.
Ooh.
Which I will hear about by the end of the month. And I've worked with this magazine before. They're brilliant. They are the poor unfortunate magazine that ended up with the shawl that was getting sent to the US via the Netherlands.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I'd give a local postage company a bit of a try. You know, they're local, shop local, and it got misloaded and redirected from the Netherlands 5 times. I ended up a week late for getting it to the magazine. On the 3 days after the deadline, the parcel was at the local post office, but they tried to deliver it to the magazine headquarters on a Saturday at an industrial park. There was nobody in. And if the editor hadn't gone to the post office herself, it would have come back to me.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah.
What lava.
So if they give me another chance, I'll be very impressed.
Well, they'll just have to make sure that you don't use that delivery company again.
Yes,
I have to admit, I do like Northern Lights. Right?
it is.
Have you tried it?
Not yet. I did
Okay.
have a feel of your whip when I last came up. I did. You said, here, stroke this, and I kind of went like this.
It's just really soft, and I love the flex in it.
Yes.
I like the effect. The effect is amazing.
They look like stars in it, which is all to do with the Northern Lights bit.
It is so just cozy and
yes, it's just yes.
Maybe it's because I felt the ball rather than an item that had been made.
Maybe sometimes it does feel different in the ball, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But this particular scarf is on the website as a free pattern if you buy a ball of Northern Lights from me.
Ooh.
You can have a play with it yourself.
See, I told you she was a dealer.
The free patterns, that's how they get you.
I know, they reel us in. Where does your design process start, and how do you normally get inspired to create your designs?
It's that naughty side of my brain again. If it's left to its own devices, give me half an hour and I've got 3 designs in my head. So it's, I have an idea, and I've got into the habit of writing ideas up as magazine submissions. Doing a bit of romance text, and then sort of what sort of yarn I want to use, and if I'm feeling adventurous and I've got some of that yarn hanging around, but unlikely, I'll do a swatch. Sometimes I will order a ball here and there of the yarn that I like the idea of and do a swatch with that. So I actually have a folder on my computer bursting at the seams full of ideas that I haven't made yet.
That's very organised.
It's very organised until you get to, and then I have an idea that I've really got to do right now, this very minute.
Not sooner.
Yes, this cardigan was one of them. I thought, oh, that'll look really good. Northern Lights is wonderful, I'll use that. And I ordered the yarn and finished the preliminary design within a month. And that includes the time it took for the yarn to get to me, because there's nowhere open at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So I bought it, hooked it, seamed it. Doesn't happen often. And ready to go. I also, with my design process, I write it all out longhand from the start. So when I've finished my initial run through, I've pretty much got a pattern that's all but ready to publish.
See, I never used to do that, and Helen actually spent 5 years telling me to write it down. It actually took me that long to become a designer because I just wasn't writing them down.
Even when I'm just doing it for the fun of it, there's a reversible octopus that I made for the clone, so I could make them both, because it's sort of like sandwiched. Could make both sides the same and not completely muck it up and have it squiffy. I wrote it down as I went. That will eventually be a published pattern at some point, because it's written. All it needs is formatting.
My front room is set up so that I can sit basically where I am now. The computer screen is behind there. I can sit here and crochet, type on the screen what I'm doing as I'm doing it, but also watch the telly, which is over there.
But I used to have a tablet with sort of a stand, and I would prop it up on the arm of the couch, and I had a Bluetooth keyboard. As my phones got bigger, I'm now at the point where I just type it out on my phone as I go.
Right.
Those projects that you actually have to make there and then, those kind of projects that you've got to make it yesterday. I have been known to use Samson Notes to write the pattern and then in shorthand, and then email it to myself so that it's on the laptop so I can type it out properly on the laptop.
I have cloud storage that I use for crochet things. It's Google Drive. For backing up my photographs that I take on my phone, I use OneCloud, I think it's called. I've also got one from my day job. They have given me a cloud storage account. I have a Dropbox for things like school documents and all of the bills and everything go in there. Everything I own. But if the internet suddenly breaks and we can never use the internet again, I've lost everything.
I use Dropbox. I don't use all the others. I use Dropbox and I tend to use it for stuff that I need in more than one place at the time.
Yeah. I have all of my patterns on the Google Drive. Then if I'm at work and somebody has a pattern question or somebody needs access to one of my patterns in some way, they're there. I can email them from my phone. I can quick look if it's a pattern I wrote 8-9 years ago, just to double check a measurement or something, then I can answer the question. Because the idea of having to wait till I get home and sort the kids' tea out and all that, I can't leave someone hanging that long if they've asked me a question.
I do try to answer as much as possible, but sometimes when you get a question at 10 o'clock at night, you think, really? I'm going to bed.
Yeah, I draw the line at 10 o'clock.
Gotta have good boundaries.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a case of, yes, you do need the boundaries so that you can actually have a life.
Yes.
Are there any designers that you admire? And if so, tell us why you admire that particular designer.
I have actually been thinking about this question all day because it's the hardest question to answer because there are so many. Because everybody has their thing. Everybody has their niche and what they love doing and what they're good at. That every designer I have ever met has been amazing and wonderful and so super talented, and I could never do what they do, and they're just so amazing for being able to do it. And I've been thinking, oh, should I do a list of sort of like my top 10? Should I see what styles I like looking at that other people have done? And there just isn't an answer, because the answer is everyone. If you make something, even if it's not crochet, however, if you make something with your own brain and your own hands, I will adore you and praise on you, which can come across as a little disingenuous because everybody gets such high praise. But I do genuinely mean it. I have a friend who does digital art and she draws on a computer. I can't draw with a pencil. And she's very young and she's very new, and I love her to pieces. And when I bought a print of her art, she was so amazed and shocked that I actually did like it, that I wasn't just saying I liked it when she showed me her new stuff. I think she was really flabbergasted and thrown. And the same goes with crochet pattern designers. I mean, I fell in love with Helen because of her designs. I can't remember which one now, though. And Faye and everyone. And something will come across my timeline on Facebook and it will be, look what I've made. And I will want to write a 12-page sonnet on how awesome it is that you've made a thing and it came from your brain and it's perfect. It's not something I personally would think of making.
Yeah.
No.
I think that's an awesome answer.
I did say I was awesome.
You did tell us that. You
You
did give us warning. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Everybody has such a unique style and their own design process. So this is going to be a follow-up question then. What was the last project that you made that wasn't your own?
I am currently working on one. It is amigurumi. I can't say too well. Actually, I can say too much because little ears have asked me for it. Geek Girl is in love with a YouTuber who has a little dinosaur. She decorates a men's squishies, and Geek Girl is in love with this woman, and she has a little dinosaur called Pickles, and her mum wrote the crochet pattern for this squishy dinosaur called Pickles. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. Even though she knows she's getting it, it's been secretly worked on, so at least something's a surprise on a birthday. That's the latest one I've finished. That was somebody else's. I am actually working on somebody else's granny squares as well. This is what I'm one of my current projects. They're about this big. I am doing miniature granny squares.
Ooh.
I've seen those on Instagram, and you're a lot braver than I am.
Considering I can't see. So they're
Oh my gosh, that's tiny.
that one is the one that's given me the most problem. Let's zoom in.
That's really cute.
And they are tiny, and I think I'm going to turn them into a large wall hanging. It's going to keep going until I run out of this embroidery thread or my eyes completely go. I don't know which one will happen first. I have, since we redecorated the living room, an absolutely massive blank wall, and it needs something. And originally I was going to do something with chunky yarn and hang it off a crochet hook that my mother-in-law bought me. It's a 50mm. So it was going to be this huge, big, chunky, which was like 6 stitches in it or something. It was going to be massive. And then I started doing these just because I thought, what will it look like? And now I think I'm going to do a wall hanging out of teeny tiny granny squares.
One thing that we did want to touch on, and that we will be bringing up in a future episode, is autism. Right? Because we know you're autistic.
Yeah, I'm not shy about it.
And so how does that sort of work in with the designing?
I think it's why I can design personally. It's that so somebody called it specialist interests on a Facebook post I was reading a couple of weeks ago. Because I do get focused, and everybody else in the world would probably say I get a bit obsessive. When I've got that idea in my head and I have to see it through till the end, I'm that bit more conscious of finishing it. You know, this problem, it's just a small problem. We'll get over this problem. I can't make it do this shape. I can't make my stitch count add up. I will keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going until it's done. So I am more, I keep wanting to say obsessive, but it sounds negative. Obsessive sounds like a negative thing, but it's
it depends which way you look at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes being obsessive about something can be good as long as it doesn't take over.
Yeah, I mean, I can step away from something, but it's the unfinished business issue I have. It can become a problem, not with crochet, but if somebody has a different opinion to me, I can't let it go until I know they understand what I'm saying. They don't have to agree, but until I know I'm understood. And it has, until relatively recently, become a problem with internet arguments, where my entire day has been taken up with something somebody else has said where they've misinterpreted me, and I've not been able to get my point across. But when we come to crocheting, I want these stitches to make this shape. They're not doing it. How can I do it? And then my brain will then spend all day coming up with a solution to the problem. And then suddenly at 10 o'clock at night, when I'll have to make a note on my phone, don't use those stitches, do it this way, and then it'll work. I've got the occasional bit of a learning difficulty, but nothing that stopped me doing well in school. So until that point, the incident that made me think I need to get tested, everybody who knows anything about autism would just look at me and know. But it wasn't important. I didn't need to tell anybody to, you know, I have this ism, as I call them. You need to be patient with me. There was nothing. I didn't need the world to fit around me, because everything that the world would think about me, the things that people would need to make allowances for, I don't care about. You know, I'm wandering around with a myriad of different colours in my hair from one month to the next. I have, how many is it? 11 pairs of glasses, and they get changed and swapped depending on what the hair's doing. I dress weird, I act weird, and if anybody doesn't like any of that, they don't have to.
No.
If somebody says to me, I don't actually like you, I'm like, okie dokie then. And I try not to get in their way, because they don't like me, you don't have to like me, I don't have to like you. And I have in recent years learned that that's another oddity that I have. A lot of autistic people and people with ADHD as well want to be liked and want to fit in. And that causes the heartache, that causes the need for a diagnosis, and the wanting to change who you are so other people will like you. Whereas I think other people should change so I like them.
I like that viewpoint.
If you're not going to be weird, if you're not going to be enthusiastic and arm wavy about whatever it is you're passionate about, what's the point of living, really? If somebody came up to me and started talking enthusiastically and waving their arms and with a huge grin on their face about trains, which I have absolutely no interest in whatsoever, I would sit and listen to them in awe for hours, because they're interested in it and I'm interested in them.
I think that if you have, even if you're not interested in a subject, if somebody has enthusiasm about it, they make it interesting.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that.
It's not about the subject, it's about the way that it's put across.
Yes. And especially if it's someone you like or even someone you love. Crochet Widower likes some very peculiar things. Very strange things indeed. And I will listen to him tell me about them for hours on end, because even though I'm not interested in them, I'm interested in him.
Yeah.
And I know more about computer workings from listening to him tell me about them than I've learned from trying to learn about computer workings, because the enthusiasm's there.
Yeah.
It just seeps in when there's enthusiasm.
They can make a subject, they can make a boring subject interesting.
Enthusiasm's key.
You'd be surprised how much my crochet widower has learned about crochet and yarns. And surprisingly, he can now pick out yarn brands by looking at them. And that's brilliant. And I didn't know he could do that.
Maths. It's where I start getting passionate again. I think with the crocheting, there's a lot of maths involved. It's numbers, there's geometry, and that's where I start to get excited.
So can you see shapes in your head and sort of see the stitches and know what needs to go into them for them to work?
No, not at all. I have no visual memory whatsoever. It's like the opposite of the scene in Little Man Tate or other such things, where the raging genius can see sort of like the angles and the lines, and the maths are floating in the air. I don't get any of that. I get absolutely nothing. I can't even, if I'm not looking at one of my children, see their face. But I can very strongly recall the emotion involved in something. Like the smell of peach potpourri reminds me of Christmas when I was about 13, and my mum had peach potpourri all around the house. We got the Spectrum. Very advanced. We had a home computer. I remember playing Dizzy and typing the programs that came in the book. And as you can possibly see from my face, I'm getting strong emotions from that. It was home and safe and all of that. With crocheting, it's the maths. So I have the idea that I want a cardigan that's asymmetrical with stripes and spots and what have you. And then it's the numbers involved in making those shapes. So when I'm thinking of a crocheted circle, I don't see a circle. I see doing double crochets. You want 6, then 12, then 18, then 24, then 30. And it's the number involved, the spaces between sort of how many you're increasing and then how many you're just doing straight crochets. So I have the numbers rather than seeing the shapes that I'm going to do. And it's more the equations involved in making the numbers do as they're told. I think.
Right, that's interesting, because that's totally different to me. I see a picture and I will start crocheting it, and as I'm working it, then I'm writing down stuff and working out, because I like the increases and decreases and things to be even and in certain places. And
if you're looking at one of my patterns and it's sized, so like a garment pattern, you can tell which one I started with, because it will have multiples of 5 or 10.
Right.
And their minimum, always an even number, every time.
But it's just interesting talking to other designers and seeing the thought process that they go through, because I know everybody does it differently. Somebody asked me once about writing down my designs and drawing pictures and things before. I don't do any of that.
That was me that asked you that.
Yeah, you mentioned about when you come up with an idea, writing it as if it's a magazine submission.
Yeah.
I don't do any of that.
That is, I do that just so that it's out of my head.
You see, I just while we've been discussing things tonight, I have just written down an idea for another cow. Right? But all it is the title of it. And as we've been talking, I have been seeing pictures. They're not specific ones at the moment, because this happens later on. It's vague ones at the moment with with ideas of how it would work, but then later on they'll become more specific and then they get sort of tried out. But I never make any sort of design notes or what have you. It's all as I'm making it, that's when it gets written down. It's all up there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out the having an image in your head bit. I mean, I know it happens. My mum has a photographic memory, not eidetic, but if she sees something, she remembers it. And when she says, I can't see myself doing that, she literally means she cannot form an image of herself doing that in her head. We have got completely opposite brains for two incredibly similar people. But the whole idea of, I'm going to go with the 12 Days of Christmas that I did a couple of years ago. That is
I remember that.
It's the closest to one of your cows that I have. Because it's a big picture and there's very little maths involved other than the graph that I did that makes the pictures. And for each one, before I sat down and started colouring in my little graphs on the computer, I didn't know what the 5 gold rings were going to look like. I knew that there were going to be 5 interlocking rings, or a little bit like the Olympics. I knew that that's what was going to happen, but I didn't see it. And I've got another one that's half made. This is my vampire hunting shawl. And it's going to be a triangular lace shawl. I don't know what the middle's doing yet, but along the edges is going to be filet crochet, garlic cloves, and stakes and crosses.
I love this idea. I know somebody else who will love this as well.
There's a zombie hunting one as well, but that's not as far along. And I've done most of the charting for it. I've done most of the pretty picture work. But again, I knew I wanted a bulb of garlic. And then took a bit of, not graph paper because I've done it on the computer, but you get the idea, graph paper. Yeah. And started colouring it in.
You use Excel?
I don't actually. I use Word. I make a graph on Word.
Oh, right. I always use
tables. I don't know why, because I use Excel for practically everything else.
When I'm doing graphs, I use Excel.
It's logical. That makes more sense than the way I do it. It just works. So that is one I do. That's one that every year my brain says, right, we're going to do this, and I do a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually it will happen, and then there will be the zombie hunting shawl. That's got salt.
It's going to be so much fun.
It is. Sounds brilliant.
I have to be perfectly honest, not quite my taste, but they do sound like fun.
Okay, what is your most popular design? Tell us about that.
Do you know, I think I want it to be Inchoate, but it's not.
Is that because you feel more really passionate about Inchoate?
Yeah, it's in my head the most popular. I think it's actually the parasols.
I was going to say I loved your parasols.
So I think it's at least one of those. And this is where I want it to be hypnosis, but I suspect it's psychosis. And that again, I had the name of the 3, hypnosis, psychosis, and neurosis. I had the names before the pattern. I really wanted to use those 3 names for parasols. Neurosis is actually for my sister. She wanted one that matched her beetle dolly. And I credit all of my neuroses to growing up with an older sister like Lindsay.
That's brilliant. The names are fantastic. I find that the hardest part of pattern design is coming up with a name.
Sometimes it's the easy bit, sometimes it's not. A lot of my garment patterns are named after the friend I bribed to model. So you need to make a couple of sizes of something that you have sizes for. And I have a couple of skinny friends, which is quite handy. So I have the Helena sweater, that's my friend Helena, and the Emma cardigan. And there's a couple like that where I've bribed a friend with, and you can keep the item when you're finished. Please come and stand at the park and be photographed. So that takes the pressure out of naming things.
You've got a good point there, because actually some of mine are named after female family members.
I mean, some of my stuff, I've sent them in as magazine subscriptions and they've actually named them.
Yes, I have one where it was renamed.
I mean, I have one where the stole that's in the diagonal stripes, this work corner to corner. I mean, I sent that in and just said it was a silk packer stole, and it came back as a sunrise stole.
So my next question is actually, where did you come up with the name Inchoate?
That was actually what I was going to next. It was a 20-minute search through a thesaurus, looking for something that meant unformed. Because the whole point of Inchoate is it's anything you want it to be. So I always do them in grey. I've seen a few other colours, some variegated yarns, they look brilliant. But it's not, there's no gender, there's no race, there's nothing. It's an anthropomorphic personification. So you've just got this blob that you dress up. And if you want it to be a girl, it's a girl. If you want it to be a boy, it's a boy. If you want to do it in the same colour to match your skin, go for your life. So I wanted a word that means unformed, that also sounded nice. There's some weird, clunky. What I didn't consider is not everybody knows how to pronounce Inchoate.
No, I read it, and because I'm a Star Trek fan, I know it isn't this at all, but I'm trying to pronounce it, and I just came up with Chakotay, so that's what I call them.
And I called them Inchoate.
It's close enough, both of you. If you know what you're talking about, that's fine. But there is, on the pattern, there is a little bit about how to pronounce it bit and what Inchoate means. Just because I think that the backstory of that particular one is, it's everything.
I might have to make one of these, you know.
I'm thinking that too.
Yes.
Do it with thread.
I'm not sure that I'm going to go with all the clothes to go with it, but I am thinking that I will have to make one.
I like the idea that it can be completely non-binary.
Don't do it in thread.
Oh, that's so tiny.
Yeah. And it's the same pattern as that one.
Oh.
It
just goes to show that you can use the same pattern and just change your thread sizes to make different sizes.
Especially with amigurumi. As long as you go down in hook sizes, it's a lot easier to do that than having to change a garment pattern because you want to use a different yarn.
Yeah.
But Inchoate is so flexible and versatile, and I know people who have made every single hoodie as I've gone along and dressed them up for the seasons.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what you're famous for? Or just the really cool name?
I think it's the name, to be honest. Because I'm juvenile, really. I've always got. I hadn't planned on designing. I hadn't planned on having multiple patterns and being known for anything other than a small group of friends as Itchy Crochet. My first pattern was terrible. It was a nativity. I will send you a photo of that. The photography, even by my standards, the photography of the nativity pattern is appalling. But somebody bought it. I only made it because I couldn't find a nativity that I liked. And looking back, it was another 5 years before I did find a nativity I liked, because the one I made was rubbish. But a friend said, it's really good, you should publish the pattern. So I did, and it sold. So I did a series of those patterns, which are rubbish, absolutely appalling. And people bought them. And then well, if people are buying these that actually I can't stand looking at anymore, what if I actually did something that's good? And there was another nativity pattern happened, significantly better. Still not inclined to say that anybody who bought the pattern got their money's worth, to be honest. But I've learned as I've gone.
Yeah.
And it's that I think I'm awesome. I will put my rubbish nativity pattern out there and be made up if somebody else likes it and somebody buys it. But if it never sells, and if somebody messages me and tells me it's the world's most awful nativity pattern, I won't mind. If somebody likes
taking that leap.
It's that old saying, isn't it? There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are patterns that I've found because of someone trying to give them bad publicity. That's just made me love them more. There's one, and it's a cow that gives birth to a calf.
Oh, it's
I
not like the
know.
pig one, is it?
It's like the pig one and the lady one, and I think there might even be a duck that gives.
There's a sheep one.
A sheep one, and someone I saw it in a strange group I'm in on Facebook, and the person who posted it was like, "Would you look at the state of this? Oh, look, there's, oh, it's a, why would you do this?" And then the whole comment section was, "That's amazing, I need one." And they posted it looking for this whole Facebook group to agree with them how appalling it is that this is a crochet cow gives birth. And then 500 and odd comments later, everyone's saying it's the best pattern they've ever seen. So there is no such thing as bad publicity. I've not gone there yet. I've not gone viral for something yet. Maybe I need to be a bit more controversial.
I have.
Ooh,
Was it your clematis or the Four Seasons?
4 seasons.
it was. I think that's where I found you. I think.
That's how I found Helen. 2013, it cropped up for me.
That picture, there's the one picture that went viral. I had over 15,000 views on it.
Wow.
And I've never done it since. I was really pleased. It was also at a time when I needed what's the word I'm looking for?
Needed that emotional boost.
That's the one. That'll do the job. Yeah. I was amazed.
That's
and I'm
brilliant.
not even sure that it was the one of the 4 seasons. I think it might have been the one of the 3 seasons before I'd actually finished the 4th one.
Ah,
Yes,
I can't remember.
I remember you finishing the 4th one. So I think it might have been the 3.
And the 3 still gets, every so often I still get something saying somebody's so-and-so's like this picture or what have you. And it's the 3 seasons. The 4th one was a bit late being finished because the bluebells were very late that year.
Oh,
I had to wait for them to come out before I could crochet them.
So thank you very much for joining us today, Amanda. It has been really interesting and I really want to make an Inchoate. So I think I'll go off to Ravelry in a bit and download the pattern, buy the pattern and have a go.
it has been an absolute pleasure. I've had a lovely time.
Well, I'm not going to make an Inchoate. I'm going to make a Chicote.
Fair enough. I like that too. So thank you very much everyone for watching. We really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed the video, please give us a like by clicking the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications so that you know when we upload again. If you want to view more content, craft related, crochet related, things like that, why not consider popping over to our Patreon page and checking us out over there. The link will be in the description below, and all other links that relate to this episode will also be in the description below. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. This video has been made possible thanks to Unravel and Unwind Patreon supporters. You too can become a patron for as little as £3.60 a month. To subscribe, visit www.patreon.com/unravel and unwind.